The Deep Six. 6 stories from your world in 30 minutes or less. Hosted by Patty Steele and Steve Cochran. The Deep Six is on.
Well, we're back for another exciting edition of the Deep Six. Patty Steele is live in New York City. How are you?
I'm mostly live. I would put it that way. Yes.
Live-ish. Live-ish.
Live-est.
And I'm Steve Cochran in Chicago. We are lifetime friends, lifelong friends, I guess. And we've both been on the radio forever. Patty's still on the radio. I was thrown out of that business a couple of years ago. We're both doing podcasts as well. What's yours called?
By the way, we want you back into radio.
Thank you.
Mine is called News on the Rocks. A lot of fun. We drink a little bit and then try to get people in positions of authority to talk about things they wouldn't talk about if they hadn't been drinking.
Well, how about that for a premise? Meanwhile, mine's called Live from My Office, and it's mostly done on CBD gummies. So I sort of doze off halfway through it. But that is where we also post every new episode of The Deep Six. So check out those feeds at pattysteele.com and Steve Cochran. I should say cochranshow.com. Helps if you know your own website. And you can find it there and find it wherever podcasts live.
The Deep Six. Story number 1.
You got a lot of entertainment news, right?
Yeah, entertainment is where we're going to go first because there's too freaking much, and we got to see how much time we use up talking about this before we race through the other 5 topics.
Yeah. So if we get to the end and the last 6 stories are just number 6 and we don't do anything, you'll know why.
Right, exactly.
Well, I have an entertainment question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
You saw a movie this week.
Oh, yes, I did. I saw Spencer, which is about Princess Diana and a weekend that she spent at the royal family's Scottish hunting lodge. I think it's called Sandringham, but I might be wrong. It might be called something else. I don't know. And it's at Christmas time in roughly 1991, they're saying, although even that didn't play out so well in the movie because the kids look too old to have been such little children in 1991. But I got to tell you, the thing that was weird about this movie, I kept going, I don't remember any of this happening. How could this have happened? It stars Kristen Stewart, and she is a passable Princess Di, although Princess Di was a little more charming than she is in that role.
I believe you described her before we started recording as really an intolerable bitch.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you would think, why on earth would anybody want them in their palace if this is the way they behave themselves?
Right.
But there were so many things that just didn't make sense. So I was reading a review of it afterwards because I was shocked that I had spent 2 hours watching this. And Newsweek magazine said, well, this is actually, according to the director, a reimagining of what that weekend could have been like. So they didn't have to have any real stories involved.
We need that? Do we need a Disney-fication of Princess Diana? You can't.
Well, it's not even a Disney. It's not even Disney-esque. It's more of a nasty, horrible take. It doesn't do any favors to her. It sure as hell does no favors to the royal family. I don't even know who they're speaking for, but the movie was just like constant upset, constant things going on. At one point, like she and Di did apparently have issues with cutting herself and all her upset. But at one point you see her cut her arm and blood's dripping down. And 5 minutes later, she's headed down to Christmas dinner in a sleeveless dress. And there's no evidence that she was cut.
How bizarre.
So it's the whole thing. I mean, they made up a lot of stuff. I'm not going to ruin the movie for you because clearly you won't take my advice and you'll go see it anyway.
I'm not going to say it. No, I'm not going to say it.
You refuse, right?
No, I know your taste. I trust you. And if you say it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah. Disappointing.
Yeah, I would say that's the right word for it, right? Because she remains fascinating. She always will be. I'm sort of taken with the idea that she'd be a grandmother now. And I think she'd be a fabulous grandmother.
Yeah, she would. So loving.
Yeah, not only the family is cheated out of that first and foremost, but the world's cheated out of seeing her as a grandmother.
Right.
And with the Queen possibly nearing the end of her life now after, some illnesses recently.
Health issues, right.
It's just, it's an interesting time to reflect. I don't know that we need a reimagining.
No.
And one bizarre way to tell the story.
one of the most egregious things is they show her taking the boys to KFC. And people that were around the palace in those days, first of all, no security, and they're sitting outside in London eating chicken along the river with no security and no paparazzi, nobody even trying to see who they are.
Please.
But here's the worst part of it. Apparently, she never took them to KFC. She took them to McDonald's. But apparently, KFC was willing to pay for the product placement in the movie. And so that's what you see.
Wow. Whatever it takes. So anyway, a ringing endorsement of Spencer. The endorsement being have dinner, go home, watch something else.
Exactly.
All right. So I got to ask you about another movie because it's also in the news. This continuing tragedy that surrounds Rust, the movie, just gets worse. Is there a curse over this thing?
I'm telling you, bad freaking luck. So what we hear now is that a crew member who was involved in breaking down the set, because obviously they're not going to go on with production in the aftermath of the shooting death of the cinematographer. It seems this guy was breaking down the set and was bitten by one of those little small brown recluse spiders, except they're really, really venomous. And within days, they said he started getting awful symptoms, including, this is something I never want to have, necrosis of his arm, which is the death of the flesh in your arm.
Flesh-eating disease, yeah.
Yes, and that occurs when cells just begin to die and die and die. And he also got sepsis from this. And so doctors have been trying to avoid amputating the arm, but they said it's been touch and go, and that's going to be a long healing process. And of course, the producers say no comment because they got enough lawsuits hanging over their head right now. This is like just one more, right?
Yeah, I guess if you're Alec Baldwin, you go bring it on. I'm not going to have any money anyway, you know?
Right.
Speaking of Alec Baldwin, it brings me to a little bit of television news, and that's Saturday Night Live. A brand new Trump on Saturday Night Live. Yeah, and I don't even have the actor's name in front of me, but he was really good.
He's I think an Instagram influencer, but who is just an unbelievable mimic or whatever you call him. Impressionist. And just, he doesn't look like him, but man, he really captured him. It was really interesting.
Because when they do the cold open and in the sketch, the script says, and now we're going to go to the president, you think Alec Baldwin's doing a bit?
Exactly.
And it wasn't Alec Baldwin, but the guy was really good. And the Saturday Night Live sweep of the show was actually, pretty entertaining as well. It's their first new show in a couple of weeks. Generally, they work 2 weeks, take 2 weeks off, whatever their schedule is. Right. Did you see the show this week?
I certainly did, because I'm a huge fan of Ed Sheeran, who miraculously recovered quickly from COVID and sang his little red head off. And then I love the show Succession, and Kieran Culkin, who plays Roman Roy, was the host of the show. And one of my favorite things was when he came out and he's doing the setup. He looked a little nervous, actually.
Yeah, he did.
But he talked about how when he was like 8 or 9 years old, he was there at the show, did a couple of scenes because his brother, Macaulay Culkin, was a big, huge star at the time from Home Alone. And so he's on stage and Macaulay's up in the air and everybody's like holding this little kid up, and he's down below with all these tall people. And he goes to Kevin Nealon and goes, "Could you pick me up?" And Kevin Nealon raises him in the air and he pumps his fist. And then Kieran said, "I had to show that because I want to be raised again at the end of the show," which they did. So it was cute. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
But the show was funny, and it's not always funny, as you know.
Right. No, frequently not.
And the other TV over the weekend that sort of jumped out for me was I almost hate myself and feel like I need to shower now after I watched the morning show. And I watched the latest episode of the morning show. And as my wife,
stressful.
It was. And as my wife put it, she goes, "There is nobody likable in this cast.
I know.
I can't find anybody to like. Anybody to root for." And it's true, but I'm still going back all the time. Now, here's what we know. Spoiler alert, you've got 3 seconds. Steve Carell's character is dead.
Yes. Which we didn't think. I mean, you thought it. I did not think it.
I didn't think, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think he was dead. I thought maybe it was a dream sequence thing or
wishful thinking.
The crash.
Right. No.
But
so
no, he's dead.
He didn't. And then, of course, Chip goes like a madman driving to right over here, not that far from me, Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, where all the private jets take off and land.
Right.
And to meet Alex as she's coming home from Italy. And for a brief moment, they thought she was in the car. And I don't understand why they would have thought that, because no one was in the car with them. And he meets her as she gets off the plane, and he tells her, and she freaks out. And then she says she's not going back to the show. And now she's going to go tell, it's not Steve Carell, it's his character.
Yeah, Mitch. I can't think of his name either, but
Mitch. It's Mitch. She's going to go tell Mitch's ex-wife, which is weird because the book has just come out in which they talk about Alex having sex with Mitch while he was married to her.
Right.
So a big surprise, she gets mad at Alex at the door and slams the door, and she goes away. But she's having this big fight with Chip in the car that's a little sexual and a little just brother and sister fight. It's bizarre.
It's this weird crossover. And I suppose if you think of the worst fights you've had in your life with somebody you're involved with, we all probably looked like it at some point, as crazy as this fight did in the car.
Yeah.
Where you're on one side screaming and crying. I'm on the other side screaming, maybe crying, and not making any sense. And they're just, at some point, it's got to come out that he's always been in love with her.
Yep.
You know, he's got this beautiful wife.
Right. Well, she even says to him, I'm not going to do you any favors. I can't say what she said she wouldn't do to him.
Right.
I know you've always wanted that. I thought, okay, he's either going to pull over the car and push her out of the door. They're going to crash. I mean, I had no idea what was going to happen. I will say one of the most interesting parts of the show was the whole development with Bradley Jackson and her brother, Reese Witherspoon's character. Because any of us who have had any addiction, anybody who we love that has addiction issues and substance issues,
my brother,
my son, I've talked about it. And he's comfortable with me talking about it. And it's true. You are so torn in half by your love for them and your anger at them and your fear for them.
Yeah.
And you really saw that in the scene with her. She's got to protect herself. And she had Laura, who is Juliana Margulies' character, there to comfort her. But it was a very interesting scene because you do understand, if like you and I both understand how torn you are inside by the multitude of emotions you feel. And I thought that was very interesting and real.
And I think the message people need to pull away from this, if there's any, is, and we're not preaching, we're just telling you from experiences, you can't love somebody hard enough to cure them. They have to want to be cured. Unfortunately, for your son and my brother, they did. My father late in life. But a lot of people don't get there. And
a lot of people don't. And it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. By the way, I keep turning away and coughing. I apologize for that, but I'm in day 5 of bronchitis while we do the Deep Six.
Poor baby.
So I apologize while we're doing the show if I have bronchitis. You may want to back off from the podcast by 10 feet or so. You may social distance plus. I don't want you to catch it.
Thank you. Now you tell me.
Yeah, right. All right, we should probably jump to our second story, right?
Yes, I think it's a good idea.
The Deep Six, number 2.
I don't know if we love celebrities or do we hate celebrities, because I really like Sarah Jessica Parker, and you're here to tell me that she's a little annoyed.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't blame her. You know, she's got this new show coming out. It's kind of the follow-up to Sex and the City. It's called And Just Like That. And it has 3 out of the 4 women in it. We don't need to get into the whole thing, what happened, But at any rate, she is talking about the fact that she and the rest of the cast are getting attacked online over the fact that, weirdly, in actually 23 years since the show debuted, they've actually aged. And people have a problem with that. And the thing that makes her angry is She said during the summer, maybe August, early September, I think it was August, she was having lunch outside, just herself in New York City. And she was with her pal, Andy Cohen. And she had let her hair go gray at that point. And everybody was like, what? Carrie has gray hair? Gray hair? Why? How could she have gray hair? That's so awful. She said, meantime, I'm sitting there with Andy, who has a full head of gray hair, looks absolutely exquisite, by the way, with it. And she said, but why is it okay for him to have it and not for me to have it? She said, we have just an awful lot of misogynistic chatter going on.
Double standard.
Total double standard. And it really has pissed her off. It pisses off the other women on the show too, because again, they point out every little tiny flaw. And over 23 years, who among us doesn't age? If you don't,
you're and I have.
Oh,
yeah.
It kind of is frightening if you haven't, actually.
Yeah, that would be a problem. When you brought this story up to me, you know who I immediately thought of was Jamie Lee Curtis, because she let her hair go gray 10 years ago, 15.
Yeah, and she has been adamant that she doesn't want to get facelifts and all the other stuff that all the Hollywood people. Yeah. We
were talking about Jennifer Aniston before, one of the most beautiful women in the world. She's had far too much work done.
Yeah, well, a lot of people in Hollywood, to the point where, Meg Ryan's a good example. You don't even recognize them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not a pretty don't recognize you. It's a unusual looking. And there are men that have done the same thing that also don't look good. And I think probably a little touch up here and there is one thing, but you overdo it, that's what happens. But at the same time, these people are all in a business that is so dependent upon their looks.
Right.
But we are in a society, it's funny, it's like the longer our lifespan is, the younger everybody wants you to look for that entire time. It's kind of crazy.
Well, that perfection thing, and we weren't going to do this story, but I think it's important to bring it up. There's something that's going on that's really insidious and really not good. And I say this as a lover of little children. The greatest thing that God gives you is little kids. Little kids to me are perfect. I love little kids.
Yeah, in any iteration, they're perfect.
Yeah, you hear a little kid laughing, your whole day's better. That's it.
Yeah.
But little kids in their school pictures. Tell me that story.
Oh my God, it's incredible. And a lot of parents are upset with it. And they've been doing this for a while, but it's just gotten more and more heavy-handed. They do retouches and they charge you for it. They charge you $12, $15, $20, maybe $300, depending on what your zip code is. But what they're doing now is it's gotten to the point where they're retouching preschoolers' pictures. And so you have some people that want their kids to look absolutely perfect. And then you have people who are saying, wait a minute, what are you telling your kids when you're trying to fix them?
Yeah.
What needs to be fixed? You have a little freckle on the tip of your nose. You have, one eye that just squints a little, whatever it is. That's kind of the beauty of being you. And when people go out of their way to fix it, even change the color of the kids' eyes based on what the parents request. It's crazy. And we really do have to kind of get a hold of that need to, well, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's the whole idea of Zoom face.
Yeah.
You're on Zoom so much that now you're staring at yourself and you're pulling at your face, you're pulling at everything, trying to fix everything because, again, back to the phones and back to all the pictures we take of ourselves and social media. There's no sense of how do I share what is really beautiful about me on a flat screen?
Can you imagine getting the kids' pictures sent to you? You open the file, you look at them, and you go, call the studio. Bobby needs a filter.
Yes. I don't want him to have brown eyes. I always wanted him to have green eyes. Where are they?
Try ivory.
Right.
Or whatever the filter is.
Right.
So, yeah, because one of the coolest things is to look back at little kids' school pictures the same way you look at yours and you go, what a cute little dork you were. Because
I have a picture of myself that my daughter was looking at recently that is from 7th grade. And of course, in 7th grade, we all feel just perfect, don't we?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But the thing that has bothered me from the day I picked up my pictures was the fact that I had long, straight hair, but I have one piece of hair that's kind of coming down and it goes across. Instead of being nice and smooth and perfect to the side, I have this big, long piece of hair that comes down and then kind of curves around and hangs awkwardly down the side of my face. But, back in those days, this was previous to actual cameras. Right. They were painting us. Right. You got one shot. That was like, click, done. If
Next.
you were blinking, that was your picture
Next.
from 4th grade. Right.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that, and I know it's totally different for girls, but I had this full head of black hair. Try to imagine it. And, and I had clearly spent all of the time that morning arranging the hair so I would have this sweep like surf on a beach,
right,
of black hair that would go just above my eyebrows. It was perfectly formed just above my eyebrows. I had this hair.
That was a look. Yeah.
The hair helmet that looked ridiculous, but I was cool. I couldn't have been cooler.
You love that picture.
You want to go back and look at those pictures and go, look what you looked like when you were that age, not what you look like touched up.
Well, it's kind of like the tattoo thing. Don't let it fade. Keep that tattoo because that takes you back to a different era, maybe a mistake, but it's a different time. So who knows? Right.
And depending how drunk you were, there could be a lawsuit. There could be evidence involved with the tattoo.
Oh, there's a woman on TikTok who was dating this guy a couple of weeks back. They dated for 1 week. She had his name written all the way down her spine. His name was Alexander. He broke up with her a week later. And she said, I don't care. It'll be there. It'll remind me.
Wow. That's a good attitude.
Yeah.
You know what? I keep getting off track here, but I think it's an important story to mention as well. Mm-hmm. We all spend too much time on social media in some form or another. If you don't, well, you may not be an American.
Right.
But the fact is, I am not a TikToker. I spent some time looking at it, but the rabbit hole for me, YouTube is a rabbit hole is enough.
Right.
I have to have the voice in my head yell at me to turn it off.
Right.
I get on TikTok, I'd be on there for a month. But there's something very cool that just happened with a girl that was kidnapped, whose life was saved by TikTok. And I think it's important that we say this. Mm-hmm. The young lady, 16, right?
16 years old, right.
And she was kidnapped by?
A 60-year-old guy near her home in North Carolina. And he drove her all the way into Kentucky. And she's in the back of his truck or car, whatever I think it's an SUV. And she looks out the window and this guy just happens to glance over at her. And she does this thing that she saw on TikTok that everybody's telling kids to do if there is any domestic violence or anything going on, where you hold your hand up, sort of palm forward. Right. You then fold your thumb in and then clasp your fingers down around the thumb. And that means trapped. I need help.
And this guy happened to know what it meant.
He happened to know that. He called the police. He said, she looks like she does look like she needs help. They got to the next exit and the cop pulled them over for said, oh, you got a headlight out or something like that. And once they were able to kind of maneuver close enough to him, they grabbed him and pulled him out and the girl was saved.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very cool story.
Go back to TikTok then. You need to start.
No, I can't do it, but let's palm open, 4 fingers down, or I should say thumb in, palm open, thumb in, 4 fingers over the thumb.
And then, grasp the thumb.
Signifies
and hold the fist up.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if you're at a restaurant and you see a woman and a man arguing and one of the couple does that, they don't necessarily need to be rescued. They're just having a bad night.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right. Now, let me get back to the celebrity thing for just a second.
Okay.
Because I feel badly after saying we shouldn't hate on celebrities. But Jeff Bezos decided to bail on his 25-year marriage to Mackenzie Scott. Right. She's moved on. She's married somebody else. A lot of things happen that lead to the end of a marriage. We're not going to judge it.
Sure, of course.
But he ends up with Lauren Sanchez, who is a bona fide man-eater. This is a woman who, has gone through men like your analogy here.
She keeps going up the chain, trying to find the guys a little more powerful, a little wealthier. And now she's reached the top of the chain.
So they were at this LA Art and Film Festival, which, by the way, if you're wondering which one, does it matter? It's LA. There's one every night. And at the LA Art and Film Festival, there's pictures all over the net that show Mackenzie Scott looking at Leonardo DiCaprio.
Wait, Mackenzie Scott or Lauren Sanchez?
I'm sorry, Lauren Sanchez looking at Leonardo DiCaprio like a 16-year-old girl looking at the quarterback on the football team, or like a 51-year-old woman looking at Leonardo DiCaprio like, Bezos, if you didn't have so much money, I would throw you over the side of your yacht immediately and ask him to come on board. It's
like
really
he was the most delectable sandwich she'd ever seen.
I mean, it's every guy has seen that look in a woman he's no longer involved with.
Right.
It's totally emasculating. And if you're Jeff Bezos, at that point, don't you have to go, this is more than the talk we're going to have in the car on the way back while Serge, our driver, puts the privacy window up. This is a problem.
You may have to collect your $10 billion and go away.
Unbelievable. I mean, so, well, it just annoyed me. That's all.
I would imagine.
So, all right. Item number 3, speaking of rich people, story number 3.
Yes.
Elon Musk.
I love this.
It's a complicated story to some extent because it involves a lot of money.
Right.
But Elon Musk owes a lot of tax dollars to the federal government if he sells any stock.
Right.
He has options on stock that are about to expire that he's going to have to pay the bill on. So he's going to have to sell about 10 billion with a B, $10 billion worth of stock to pay his tax bill. It could be as high as 15.
Right.
So he was talking about selling 10% of his stock. So we'd have $20 billion. He'd give an additional $5 billion of that to charity, which is great.
Yeah, thank you.
And then he'd have $15 billion or so that he would give to the government, minus the charitable deductions and all those other things that go on with tax accountants.
Right.
How did he decide
probably
to do this?
almost nothing.
Yeah. How did he decide to do this? Well, long involved meetings with accountants, sure. But in a Twitter poll.
He said, should I do
poll? A $20 billion Twitter poll that he put up that got millions and millions and millions of votes and said, hey, what do you think I should do? Should I sell 10% of my holdings in Tesla? And of course, the answer was yes.
Yes, do it. Go ahead. Do it. Now, the question is he going to take their advice and do it or no?
I think he's got to. And I think it was a setup because regardless of the fact that he's on the spectrum, he's brilliant in a million different ways. And one of those ways seems to be marketing. And if he sets this up as, hey, I'm selling stock, but I'm doing it not because the company is going bad or because I don't have faith in the company. I'm doing it because I have to do it because I have a tax bill, and that really doesn't have any effect on how much I believe in the company. So you don't see that traditional drop.
Right.
Where if, executives in the company bail, then people start selling the stock.
Yeah, because people get afraid. So he's explaining ahead of time. And he did promise, by the way, to abide by the results of the poll, whichever way it went. Clearly, he knew how it was going to go.
Right.
So you're right. It was just a brilliant marketing ploy.
But I guess we're going to make all major decisions now going forward on Twitter polls.
Yes. Sure, why not?
Yeah, we're being attacked by China. Should we retaliate? A, yes. B, no. C, let's order egg rolls and decide.
Here's the best part. Then you don't have to take any responsibility no matter what happens.
Kinda
and
like
who
life.
wants responsibility?
Speaking of responsibility, there's tons of COVID news out there. This is story number 4.
The Deep Six, number 4.
I love the fact that 5-year-olds are now 5 to 9-year-olds, I guess 5 to 12-year-olds actually, are able now to get the COVID vaccine. And there's no evidence of side effects that are dangerous and damaging. We have these doctors. I know your friend on Facebook who sent you a story probably has a medical degree. I'm sure they wouldn't send it to you if they didn't. But I'm going to go with doctors that actually have done, work in this field.
Lots of research, right?
Research. And 5 to 12-year-olds in New York and in Chicago, they're getting the vaccine.
Yeah, the city clinics this week began offering them to kids, which was kind of funny because when the first video came out, at first, like they would show Dr. Fauci and they would say, oh, little one, here's your shot. And the kid would say, why, thank you very much. Here's a lollipop. Great. Well, the reality is when they went to the city clinics, you would see this screaming their heads off, crying, getting
Sure.
jabbed. And they were doing recommendations for how you keep the kid calm by bringing like a favorite teddy bear or something, or sitting there and just rubbing their little hand. But the bottom line is, you do anything you can to help your child. And if in fact, part of that for you includes vaccines, you want to make it as untraumatic as possible. And so the interesting thing was that Big Bird from Sesame Street.
Right. Who's 6 forever, by the way, if you're wondering.
6 forever, got his shot this past week. And there actually were a lot of parents that were upset about this, probably the ones who don't want to vaccinate their kids, because they were saying, what are you like, you're messing with kids' minds by putting this guy out there doing that, but it was interesting.
Parents, you get to make your own decision, but your decision should not be made by your Facebook friends. Your decision should be made on advice of doctors and what you decide to do as a family. We know that this is okay. And we know this is going to protect your kids. And yes, if my kids were still 5 to 12, I would absolutely get them the vaccine. You and I have both been double vaccinated. I've got the booster coming up after I get over this, whatever this bronchitis is. And we have the science. It's miraculous we got it so fast. And why wouldn't want your children to do it? And by the way, Sesame Street may be the greatest show in the history of television. Yeah. It's entertaining for adults, and kids learn.
Yeah, changed children's.
Kids learn every single episode. It's great. And that Elmo, what an actor. So I couldn't be a bigger fan of the work they're doing, and I salute Big Bird. Of course, a lot of politicians went nuts and said this is all politics. Here's a bulletin. Big Bird's 6. He doesn't vote. Right. So imagine him.
Neither do 6-year-olds.
Yeah. And imagine him trying to get into the booth. He's way too tall, he'd bang his head. But anyway, that's enough of that. And by the way, speaking of this cold/bronchitis thing that I have.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've been sick in 2 years.
Isn't that interesting?
You know how weird it is to get sick again after all the COVID stuff?
I know.
Because
the same thing happened to me. Yep.
The immediate assumption is, well, I'll be dead by the weekend. That's it.
Yeah.
It's over.
I had some kind of wacky cold, and I hadn't had a cold in like 7 years that lasted longer than maybe 12 hours tops. Hours, not days, hours. I would get over them like that. Right. And this thing came on in July and didn't fully leave me until September. And it was easy. I can't even tell you how many times I went in for COVID tests, because I kept thinking maybe they missed it the last time. What the heck is that? I'd have the rapid test. I'd have the long test. I would have I was letting them remove my head and look down my throat.
Sure. Why not?
It was really spooky. And after all is said and done, I realized, well, maybe I should have gone to somebody who could have found something else that was wrong with me, as opposed to just getting the COVID tests. But I eventually got over it,
Yeah. Well, at this point, I think it's good too. The COVID swabs are very long. Most of us have had tests by now, obviously. Yes. I've had 20 or 30 probably. So I just, as you know, and I appreciate you not mentioning it, but I have 2 swabs jammed up my nose the entire time.
Yes, I see that.
I could just pull them out and give them to someone, and they can test me at any given moment. So
it's like a pregnancy test. You pull it out. It's got a little positive on it.
That's it.
The Deep Six, number 5.
There was a story over the weekend, which is really troubling. And I we both come from music radio backgrounds before we got into talking and entertaining, and the thing that we did for most of our careers.
Right.
But I don't know how Live Nation stays in business now, because they're the world's largest concert operator. They were the concert operator when the Vegas mass shooting went on.
Right.
There's lawsuits there that'll go on for another 10 to 20 years.
Easily.
And now over the weekend at Astro World, this Travis Scott headline concert, another disaster. 8 dead? Is that right?
Yeah, in Houston, 8 people dead, hundreds. They said that 300 people were treated for injuries in the aftermath of this. I think somewhere under 20 had to be hospitalized, but it was vicious. It took place down in Houston. And the big problem with these massive festivals is there's no seating. So everybody just pushes. It's a stampede. It's just this thing where they keep going forward. And what happened is Travis Scott brought Drake out. And I mean, these are two of the biggest hip hop artists in the world. And so out he comes, and Travis is like, yeah, come on up. And so they're all pushing forward, and people just literally got trampled to death. One person said he was physically unable to raise his arms up above his head. He could.
That's a crowd that was pinched in that hard.
They were. Another woman said she could feel it pressing into her lungs, so she couldn't breathe. And then a third person said she was so desperate to get out that she bit the shoulders of the guy in front of her to make him move out of the way because she was desperate to get herself out of there. Wow. And the worst part is the cops had come on board and they said, this is a mass casualty event. This needs to be shut down. It took Live Nation a full, I think, 37 minutes to finally shut it down.
Yeah. And over the weekend, Travis Scott and Kylie Jenner, his girlfriend, defended him on this. Said we had no idea that it was as bad as it turned out to be. And we feel horrible for everybody, which obviously is the right sentiment. Mm-hmm. But she said, and I don't know Travis Scott or Drake. They don't hang with me. Yeah. But they would not have stayed on stage doing a show if they knew people were dying in front of them.
No, but you still have go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't want to defend him to that extent because you were telling me that Travis Scott has a history with this.
Yeah, the problem is you say, well, I didn't mean to do it. It's kind of like drinking and driving. There are people who can drink, drive, and get home.
Right.
But the problem is the risk you're taking. And when you are encouraging people, and saying, screw security, just keep coming, and telling them. So a guy here in New York, his name's Kyle Green. He's 27 now, but 4 years ago, he was at a Travis Scott concert at this place called Terminal 5, open, no seating, open space. He was up on a balcony above the crowd, and they said the crowd was so overpacked. There were, again, no moving, no ability. And what happened is people kept pushing. He fell off the balcony and he was paralyzed. He says he has since just begun to regain just really super limited mobility. He needs all kinds of crutches and things, and he's working on healing. And here we are 4 years later. But interestingly enough, at that same concert, Travis was encouraging people in the balcony, which is, probably 2-3 stories up almost because of the height, to dive off into the crowd below.
Oh, you're kidding.
So here you are, you're risking by being stupid enough to do that. You're risking yourself, but also the people you land on.
Wow.
So this is not, and my understanding is that this kind of thing has happened with him at other shows, including in LA, where people have been hurt. So I think he's got a lot of answering to do.
Got a lot of legal problems for sure.
The Deep Six, number 6.
The robots are coming. The robots are coming. The robots are coming. And yeah. I don't know, will this scare people into getting back to work, do you think?
I don't know, because the robots have been around and we've been hearing all these companies talk about robotics for years and years now. A good 10 years ago is when we really started seeing the rise in robots replacing humans at work. Now, it really has stepped up during the pandemic, and the labor shortage. There's a huge labor shortage. So they did a study in the last couple of months, and they found that CFOs at firms with difficulty hiring, that 1/3 of them are now using or exploring robots to replace workers. Domino's Pizza said robots have reduced the amount of labor needed, I love this, to produce their dough balls.
Dough balls. Listen, if you have that, get to a doctor immediately.
Other companies doing it include Hormel Foods, that's Spam and Skippy peanut butter and a whole lot of other stuff. And also a company that provides industrial security. They have this like little R2D2 type robot and they're security cops. And they say they cost as little as $3.50 an hour. They don't need benefits. They don't need to go home early for a yoga class or for their kids. They'll work all night if you want them to. And so this is rapidly cutting down on the number of actual workers needed. And some people say, if this continues, labor demand will slow, inequality will increase, and the prospects for low education workers will not look very good.
Well, thank God. All I can say is thank God we've got an active, engaged, young, invigorated Congress who will act on all of these problems immediately.
And I got to add this in. I didn't even know about this until I read this story. Walmart actually started using fully driverless trucks in their online grocery business back in 2020 in Arkansas, where Walmart is headquartered. They just so far have had 2 trucks on a 7-mile loop. And it started with having a safety driver on board.
Okay.
And this past summer, they got rid of the safety driver. So they're completely nobody inside. This thing goes to warehouses where they pick stuff up and then they drive it on roads in that area, about 7 miles round trip, to drop it off at distribution points for Walmart stores all over the place.
It's completely freaky. Have you seen one of these yet? Because I saw my first one.
Really? A driverless
it wasn't a Walmart
one?
truck. It was a small delivery truck, and I don't know what they were delivering, but no driver.
No driver.
You do a double take and a triple take, and you go, what?
Yeah.
You realize what it is, and you get away from it as fast as you possibly can. And then, of course, you hit something because you're not paying attention. And the guy with no driver, the truck with no driver, they're fine, and you hit another car.
Exactly. Well, there you go. That's the problem.
Now, the supply chain, we've talked about this before on the Deep Six, but the supply chain is supposedly a problem. Supposedly, we're not going to have anything for Christmas. Santa's not going to bring us anything. Santa can't get the ships to move to the North Pole.
You can only get big, giant turkeys. You can't get smaller turkeys.
Right. Every turkey now, I'm being told, I don't want to exaggerate, they're 700 pounds. And you need to start cooking it sometime around August 1st, and that's obviously past.
But the problem is you can't get an oven delivered that will fit it because the supply chain with those giant industrial ovens. Oh, well.
So on the small chance that things will work out, no, they won't. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. I'm working on your Christmas present early. It's a Play-Doh figurine of you from when we worked together in the 90s. And coincidentally, you tell me Play-Doh's working on something in this regard.
Yeah, Play-Doh has... I love the way you go into this stuff.
Yeah.
Play-Doh has this new stuff that's Play-Doh for adults. It's grown-up scents. You know how like little kids, I mean, I don't know. Did you play with Play-Doh when you were a little boy?
Sure.
It always had a nice kind of sweet smell. So it was very attractive to like bite it.
I know. I'd put anything in my mouth when I was a kid.
I love biting. I love biting Play-Doh. I love biting silly putty. But so this is now they make it with all kinds of scents. This is the 90s edition of grown-up scents. And they say each jar of Play-Doh comes with one of 6 scents. Ode to Boy Band, VHS Rental and Chill, Pump Up the Jams, Dial Up Delight, Mall Food Court, and Flannel Fresh.
They each sound like something to make you throw up.
Yeah, they do. And some of them I can't even place. Like, what is a video store smell like? I'm not sure what that would even smell like.
I would think mostly the people in it.
Like the tape? Yes, tape, right.
Yeah, right. I don't, when I think of the 90s, I think how much Davidoff cool water did I splash on, and were the people in the elevator upset?
Right.
So I don't know this is a good idea. And as far as remembering smells from the 90s, I don't remember what I had for breakfast. You know what I mean?
I will say the one that I'm going to avoid is the Mall Food Court because they say it's made to smell like mystery meat. What the heck is that? I don't mystery meat. I don't want that.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to slap a little Spam on your neck before you go out for the evening? Good Lord. Well, listen, it's the Deep Six. That's Patty in New York. I'll continue to work on the Play-Doh figurine. Listen to her on WCBS-FM with Scott Shannon every morning, and catch your podcast, News on the Rocks, and listen to Live from My Office, where you'll hear this and the other Live from My Office podcasts as well.
Yeah, grab me at pattysteele.com and grab you at The Cochran Show. Is it The Cochran Show? It's
cochranshow.com, but you can email us at thecochranshow.com as well, or just check the show notes out. We've got a lot of ways to connect as we continue with the Deep Six. We hope you like it. We hope you'll tell your friends. And we'll be back for another edition, and I'll be healthy next time. Night.
Yes. Good night. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. The Deep Six. Subscribe, rate, follow, or review at pattysteele.com or cochranshow.com.
If you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance your existing home, you need to do what I did. I called Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender who's always going to look out for your financial best interest. Your credit score is the number one factor that determines your interest rate. The difference between a 699 and a 740 score on a $250,000 mortgage will cost you an additional $25,000 in mortgage payments over that 30-year fixed loan. You heard me. An additional $25,000 that you'll never see. It's just gone in payments over the life of your mortgage unless you get that credit rating up. And to enhance your credit and to secure a lower rate, pay off or pay down your credit cards every Friday and get added as an authorized user on the credit card of someone with great credit. These are the tips and tricks that Hochberg knows. They're all legal. And this is the kind of time he can save you because he's doing the thinking for you. Team Hochberg helped me and my family and thousands of my podcast listeners enhance their credit to secure the lowest rate before purchasing a new home or refinancing their existing home. But they can't help if they don't have you on the other end of the phone. Pick up the phone and call or jump online. It's 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. Your part's easy. They'll do the heavy lifting. 855-563-2843 or 56david.com for Homeside Financial, an equal housing lender. NMLS number 1124061. All right, this is live from my office. And I tell you, this is a real treat. This is being recorded on Veterans Day. And thank you all for your service very much. But we're recording this on November 11th. And it was just last night, the 10th, where SpaceX sent live astronauts to the space station in a successful launch. So we have multi-bazillion gazillionaire and space pioneer Elon Musk with us. Elon Musk, thank you for calling in.
Yes, hello, Steve. Good to be here. Your podcast is a bright galactic star. The other podcasts are more like brown dwarfs, very substellar. Very substellar.
If I knew what you were talking about, I'd agree, sir. Thank you.
So, Steve Cochran, I know you've received a lot of complaints over the years. I know you've been in the business a long time. Thousands of, in fact, complaints from listeners who weren't real fans. Mm-hmm. So, knowing I would be talking to you today, I had my scientists from SpaceX and Tesla Labs hack into your former employer's corporate server, collect all of the negative messages that have been left there, including angry voicemails, lots of angry voicemails. I've transferred them to a thumb drive, and we are going to launch that thumb drive into space.
Wow.
So you're welcome. It's time for a fresh start.
What a wonderful,
have a fresh start.
Wonderful gift. I feel as though you've probably broken many laws, but I don't care. Thank you, sir. Thank you for doing that for me and for the podcast.
Oh, fair enough. But I do have some more good news for you.
Well, great. Tell me.
Well, my tachometer told me that this will be the most downloadable podcast episode of all.
Oh, yes.
Which is why I'm here. So why don't we get high, discuss SpaceX, and share some ideas, shall we?
Yeah, well, this isn't actually the Joe Rogan show, but we'll get through most of that. And I'm going to here's what I got for you. Congratulations, of course, are in order. You are the richest man in the world, and it's not close.
Far richer than Jeff Bezos.
Mm-hmm. Bezos, yes.
That's something I like to throw out every now and then.
It's billionaire humor. Yes, I get it.
Thank you. And Steve, I appreciate that. I have to say, what you just did was impressive. It wasn't a question, yet it provoked me to respond. Very masterful, very stealthy. You've been doing this thing for a while, the interview.
Yes. Thank you, Elon.
Yep.
If I can call you that. Now, I wanted to ask you about a recent story involving the failure of SpaceX toilets. It appears the astronauts returning home on the Crew Dragon capsule, they had to use, correct me if I'm wrong, backup underpants.
Yes, and as expected, my live from my office algorithm told me you were going to jump right into the gotcha questions. I see where that's going.
That's not my intent. But can you tell me what happened in that case?
Well, Truthfully, Steve, we only recently discovered that SpaceX toilet failure was imminent. And that is because I finally equated a poo destructor algorithm. Would you like to hear about the algorithm? I could share some details about the algorithm.
I feel like I should ask you a question about that. Do I really want to hear about it?
Of course you do. Now, I don't know why I didn't theorize this earlier, but my poo destructor algorithm uses your base number of years digesting fast food, combined with the multiplier, which is the length of your inseam on your newest pair of golf shorts, subtracted by the outlier, divided by the deflationary ratio of how many times you've actually had to use a gas station bathroom. And that's a metaphysical quotient there.
Is.
Then you take the whole integer and add the cumulative number of program directors you've worked for. Then boom, now you have a life expectancy of a SpaceX toilet before it fails to process a space dump. Yeah, it's brilliant. Brilliant algorithm.
It really is. Yes, it is.
I tell you, this turned out to be a foolproof algorithm. But frankly, I wish I ran it before we installed the previous Space Johns.
Yes, of course. Well, I have to say, it's pretty impressive and very, very close to my life.
It really is. And you know what else is impressive? Some of the brilliant ideas I've been working on. Are you ready for me to blaze up and share more of my exciting new ideas?
Well, I can't control what you're doing, but I would like to hear more. Yes, I would.
Well, very well. Let me break out some of the sticky icky. Nice little joint I got here from Joe Rogan. Smells nice.
Uh-huh.
All right. Here's something you may enjoy. Steve, I believe in keeping the streets clean, so I've constructed police helicopters that, when they patrol the skies, they also double as giant leaf blowers.
Well,
pretty cool, huh?
It's actually a pretty good idea. Sure, of course it is.
Yeah. And here's another. A reverse microwave. That actually makes your food or drink cold. Brilliant, right? Brilliant idea.
Yeah, it is good. So do it quickly, because we do have that thing called a freezer. What else do you have?
My team has also developed an optional feature on your vehicle that will reverse tow a tow truck if it attempts to move your vehicle.
Oh, well, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Oh, you're right. You're very welcome. And if I may, I would like to leave you with a hilarious joke, okay? It's a thinker, all right? The moon may seem boring and innocent, but it has a dark side.
Yeah.
Highbrow humor. I'm so funny. And it's not just the weed talking at all.
Well, if you ever make it to the greater Chicago area, I'd love to have you open for me on stage.
Oh, wait, I have another one for you.
Oh, you do?
I've created emergency hot dogs that heat up when you crack them like glow sticks.
Okay, they sound
pretty cool, huh?
They sound just as edible as the real thing. I like what I'm hearing. Some of it may need to be worked through, but you're certainly doing amazing things.
How about this one? Many people will like this. A doorbell that's only audible to humans. So your dog doesn't freak out every time a package gets delivered.
Now that is a multi-million-dollar ideal, or as I like to call it for you, pocket change.
Good for the holidays coming up. Very well. Well, let's get the patent lawyers on these immediately.
Yes.
Can we hear that?
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast, Mr. Musk. I hope we can talk again.
My pleasure, Steve. My pleasure. Oh, by the way, I was thinking about putting a poll up on Twitter. I'd love your input.
Well, you've certainly got famous for many things, and that was one of them. What do you got?
Okay. After this interview, should I, A, eat 3 cans of Pringles, B, sit in the dark and wait for people I think are chasing me? That's pot paranoia.
Yeah.
Or C, watch every episode of SpongeBob SquarePants with the volume muted and Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon playing in its entirety.
I'm going to go with C. Let me kick the poll off with C.
I was going with C too. You know, the only thing higher than me right now is space. Space.
Oh my. Thank you, Elon Musk. And if you're currently holding Tesla stock, I hope it hasn't shaken your confidence. This is live from my office.
30 years plus on the airwaves, you have turned your dial to me. Now you're tuned into my podcast. It's live from my office, Steve. From Ithaca, New York, to Carolina South, W. Cochran Steve. From Minneapolis and then Chicago twice, top-rated shows achieved. Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve Cochran Podcast Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No better place to be. Yeah, 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 yeah. Subscribe and like for free. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Live from my office, Steve. So glad you're with me. It's live from my office, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Support the show by subscribing wherever you're listening and by telling your friends about it. Follow Steve on all social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And make sure you check out this episode's show notes for relevant information discussed during the conversations. You can also email the show directly at thecochranshow@gmail.com with any questions or comments. And that's the best place to tell us about your favorite nonprofit so we can make sure we mention them on the next episode. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event. And occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.